Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole. I am UpStack social media specialist, and we thought an amazing topic for today's video session is all about mindfulness in the workplace. And we thought of this mainly because, especially when you work remotely, like Team UpStack does, it's very difficult to not only have a healthy work-life balance, but make sure that you always take time for yourself, make sure you do strategies to help you avoid burnout, avoid long hours that could make you burn out, especially even if you love your work. It's very difficult to maintain this balance. So we thought an amazing person who could speak more on this topic would be Diana, who's part of UpStack's community team. And she's going to go through some tips and strategies today on how to increase your mindfulness when you work remotely. Diana, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me together with you. Personally, this is a very touchy topic for me too, because I really believe that mindfulness has so much misconceptions, both in our personal and work-related lives. So I really hope that with this presentation, we will break down these misconceptions, and we will make sure that we will provide some really good tips and tricks for all of you, because as Nicola said, overwork is a big thing, and I'm pretty sure that neither we at UpStack, neither you want to be in these shoes. So let's sure that we tackle this.
Excited.
So just to present a little bit myself, I am Diana. And as Nicole mentioned, I'm community manager at UpStack. So definitely mindfulness is a big topic in the community department, because we are really working on reaching the fulfillment, both of developers and of the core team, discussing various topics, integrating people together. And I'm going to be honest with you, fulfillment can't be achieved fully without mindfulness. It just literally can't. So we have noticed with Daniel that once we put mindfulness as the core last reserve, after all the tasks, the issues start arising. But once we put mindfulness as the core priority before all the other goals and tasks, actually it shifts and it balances everything literally together. So I think more often than we think, about mindfulness, we kind of assume that this is something as the last reserve that we're going to do, because it's not that important, yes. It's not going to influence our goals. It's not going to influence our results. It's actually other way around. And this is why I'm so really passionate to talk about this topic. Firstly, because, as I mentioned, it's something personal. I started touching this topic 15 years ago, to be honest with you. I had a near-death experience, Legionnaires' disease. And it's true what they say, that once you have such an experience, you start questioning your life, literally. And one way or another, you're going to touch mindfulness. And once you touch that personally, you start seeing how it integrates in all the other different departments of your life and all the different life areas. And work is such an important part because we spend so much time of our lives nowadays in it. So this is why before we start discussing a little bit more about the tips and practices, I really want to touch the concept of mindfulness itself. Because if I ask you, Nicole, or if I ask anyone else, or if you even ask anyone else, I'm pretty sure you're going to receive a different answer for the question, what is mindfulness, literally? And I have experienced that myself. And my concept of mindfulness even changed myself too. But it's a little bit interesting in a sense because we see mindfulness term everywhere. We see it in blogs, we see it in media. Literally every third, I think, outlet has the word mindfulness now. And then has this conception that, we all understand this very well because we are using this word so much, but it's so far from the truth. And I see some really mean misconceptions. And that's why I think the workplaces are not so keen to integrate mindfulness in their own working environment because it literally just has some stereotypes around it. So once we talk about mindfulness, I think what most of us start thinking firstly that mindfulness is meditation, yes? Often when we hear mindfulness word, we think about it's just meditation. And sometimes I even heard that. And I personally really believe that first, that it's just for hippies or it's just for monks meditated on the Tibetan mountains. Or that I'm not doing mindfulness because it's just positive feelings and it's impossible to be all the time Zen. It's impossible to be all the time mindful. And I'm going to say it's total bollocks, because that's so not true. That's really not how it is, because you know what? Mindfulness is actually all about self-awareness. It's all about environmental awareness. So it's observing yourself and observing the environment and really integrating that concept of both accepting and both questioning it, but not with judgmental eyes, but with curiosity over and over again. And that doesn't happen once. We don't just rule meditation and become gurus at that. It just happens over and over again in our daily lives, in our daily working practices, and our daily tasks. So I think this is just a really important concept to touch, because I see people not starting it just exactly because of that, because we think it's just meditation, and it's not. Meditation is a part of mindfulness, but there are many different varieties of it, and we will touch a few of them too. So why exactly we're talking about mindfulness? Yes, what benefits it has. And it has a lot of benefits, to be honest, in the workplaces. And they researched it. There was lots of science around it too. They noticed that once the organizations integrate mindfulness more in their workplaces between employees and as the leaders themselves, because always remember, you're not going to integrate mindfulness with employees as a group. You need to practice it as a leader too, because employees listen to not your words, but what you do. So I think this is also the important concept. But they notice within the companies where the leaders practice mindfulness and where the employees practice mindfulness, there is the increase of joy, increase of productivity, reduction of anxiety, and the strengthening of relationships between the employees together. So I don't know about you, but this sounds really juicy for me. I want to see that happening more at UpStack, and I want to see all the other companies having more joy and also more productivity, because I believe that we can achieve it all. I believe that it's possible to have both versus constantly competing. Is it just joy or is it productivity? Now we can totally have it both ways together with mindfulness. I think when we're talking, about misconceptions, one thing that I constantly also see happening with anyone I talk about is that once we start understanding the mindfulness concept a little bit more, we start thinking that it's just good for our mental compartment. Yes. So we discuss mental health a lot. I know Ben from UpStack had an amazing presentation about mental health too. And it's really amazing. I'm all voting for that. But the thing is that mindfulness integrates mental health, but it's not just that. So mindfulness is a little bit broader concept. So it's not just that we need to think about and self-observe about our health. We need also to think about physical integration, which is not just movement, which it is. Remember that you need to nurture your body, that you need to move between your breaks, to stretch, to go for a walk. This is mindfulness too. But also remember that you need to eat. That is also physical, yes? And so many of us within remote work, forget to have lunch, or we just postpone it. And then, of course, that influences our productivity level because, hey, we need food. We're human beings. So there are lots of these physical compartment things that come into the mindfulness. And at the same time, then we think about mental compartment or more intellectual compartment. We shouldn't think about it just in the terms of work relationship, because often I think we simply ditch the mental compartment away because we think this is what our work is all about, yes? But that's not the truth. You should even question what work you do and how you do it. So this is literally how you feed your brain, how you're perceiving the information and how you're integrating that information in your life. So once you're working, how are you receiving the feedback? Are you in the good, communication with the client, and how you literally react? What patterns are occurring there once you hear something bad or good happening? This is all about training your mind. This is how you are wiring your mind to be a little bit more positive, because I'm not saying that you're supposed to be all the time positive. I'm simply just saying that it's better to have an open mindset of positivity versus to be complaining about everything. And we all know how that feels. And then there is another compartment that sadly we often forget, the emotional one. So ask also yourself how you are managing your emotions in your work, within your working tasks. Is it that you are becoming sensitive about everything? Is it that you are showing your anger to your employees when something is happening wrong? Which is going to happen. Doesn't matter how mindful, how zen you're going to become. These things and uncomfortable situations are going to happen in the companies, in any companies, in live areas every single day. So just make sure that you're just taking care of your emotional department and just simply asking yourself, am I having maybe too many calls and I'm overreacting with my emotions because of that? Am I just over controlling my team, which is actually the fear emotion itself? Am I just going with the flow too much that I don't even take responsibility for my actions? That's also an emotional reaction. So I think, as you can see, there can be so many pillars in the mindfulness. So generally just pausing and thinking about yourself. How are you reacting? How are you doing? And I think the problem is that many of us just don't take time, sadly, to pause. I have been in those shoes myself, so I'm not saying I'm expert in that. But it's all about actually pausing and just having a break in order to assess the situation. And lastly, of course, I would like to share with you some powerful mindfulness practices. And I'm here to vote for simplicity. I'm going to be honest. I think so often we overcomplicate ourselves. So often we look for these huge practices that are going to drastically change our lives like this, like with a click. Well, that's rarely happening. For sure, it might happen, but rarely happening. And I have been using these free practices in my working environment a lot. It helped me personally a lot. And it's something that we can really do very fast, very simple, without the necessity to have literally any resources. So we can't make even excuses that we can't do it because it's that easy. For me, the magic is actually in the breath work. This is one of the techniques that I have been using a lot. And I personally like to use the breathwork technique called 1-8-7. So this is a specific method because you are inhaling, calculating till 4, you are holding the breath, calculating till 8, and then you're exhaling, calculating till 7. So what this does, I do it around 5 to 7 times, depending on the situation, how stressful or anxious I feel. So what it does, it actually literally calms your nervous system. So imagine just doing this before the presentation, just doing this before going on the call, just doing this after even then you had a stressful situation. That literally can calm you down almost halfway, if not more. I have seen really amazing magic happening around this technique myself in my own life. And as I told you, it's something that is so easy to do. So why not to try? There are different variations of breathwork methods out there too that you can research, but this is something that really worked for me personally. And then another practice, which I think we often don't see as practice, is simply, as we talked a little bit, review. Don't to forget to review the things and to set time to review, to take it literally very serious and not negotiate it also as a last resort. Because I think most of us sadly does that. We think that we have everything in our minds and we can remember everything. Well, sorry to say that, but most of us don't. And I have been on that track too. I myself have actually on Fridays around 2 hours for the review of the whole week. And I love doing this practice. It just shows me a lot, firstly, how many things I can forget, how I can underestimate myself, It shows me a lot also how much I can learn within a week, because in this practice, I write 3 major big learning points that I learned. I write every activity that actually happened, take time to think about it, what I learned from it, what are the next steps that I can take. And it really gives so much of realizations out there. It's just really interesting to do and to see what can happen simply when we pause and give ourselves just time to be. It's just amazing. And I often say that we don't learn from the experiences actually itself. We learn through the processing of those experiences. So, take time to review as a leader yourself and give some time for your employees to review their day, to review their time, how they work, to review their input, to review, the teamwork itself. It's really beneficial a lot. And the last is a very simple technique, a very simple question that I integrate in my life every time something doesn't play as I want it to play. So these things, as I said, happen, and we either can see those things as triggers for us and really bad things about which we can complain and cry about, and sometimes crying needs to be done too. Let's be honest, we're emotional beings. But we can also ask ourselves what we can learn from it. Because it doesn't matter how awful the situation is, I'm telling you, there is always something to learn from it. So we can either sit there blaming the client or blaming, our spouse even. And at the same time, we can just ask, what can I learn from this? So every time then something doesn't go as I want to, I ask myself, what can I learn from this versus focusing on the negative thing, and find free answers, always free. Not one or two, but just free. And it allows me to simply just curiously be open about the things and to see it through the different angles versus just sitting there and talking about how miserable my life is. And this reminds me about the book I was just reading, to be honest with you, which is called Everything is Figureoutable by Maria Forleo. So I think that phrase really fits here because everything is really figureoutable if you want to figure it out. So I hope those tips can be thankful, and let me know, Nicole, if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Diana. That was super helpful. And I just wrote down those tips because I was like, I need to start doing these at my own desk. Let me see. You can stop sharing the screen now. I think it's good. I have a few questions if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So for the mindfulness practices at your desk, for people that maybe have difficulty stepping away from their desk or anything like that, or they haven't done the breathwork suggestion that you mentioned, is there any other mindfulness practice that you think is easily incorporated into like a work from home routine that you've personally enjoyed?
Absolutely. As I said, sometimes it can be really simple. So don't think that you need to do a half an hour routine. It actually can be 5 minutes. It can be even 1 minute. So all you need to do is actually just to take away your eyes from the computer. That's the practice itself. Just look around the room at a few of the things, focus on it, focus on the color, focus on the shape of it. That actually helps your brain even to relax. That's a very simple technique that we can all do. And just, you don't need even to go and exercise and do these huge physical activities. As I know, for example, you, Nicole, you have a treadmill now, which you use during the calls. And this is an amazing technique, exactly what you can do. So there are so many alternatives. I personally do yoga during my breaks, during my working breaks. People can literally just walk around the apartment. You can just jumping jacks. That just takes 5 minutes of your time. And voila, you will see the difference in your mood for sure.
Very true. Helpful. I noticed that in my own work routine, when anytime I'm starting to feel tired, I'll hop on the treadmill desk and it immediately wakes me up because the movement and like being forced to focus physically on my body and what I'm doing, it definitely does help with that.
Absolutely.
Another question I had is, I know there's probably maybe a challenge between how people will see mindfulness saying like, okay, I need to be more self-aware of my environment, really take in everything, but they have a harder time applying that in like a work-related setting, especially those people that returned back to the office and they're not working remotely. Do you think, what would you say is like the biggest challenge for those people who have to go into the office every day and want to incorporate mindfulness, but they're still in that more traditional corporate culture?
Definitely. I would simply say that don't think that, firstly, something that is very popular, works for everyone, is going to work and be appropriate for you. Because the truth is, make it also personal, fit it into your schedule, fit it into your routine. I though often joke, if you don't have 10 minutes for mindfulness or meditation, maybe you need 30 minutes, because it's actually the truth. The more busy we are, the more we need to. But at the same time, make sure that it fits your routine. So maybe if you are going to the office, maybe you can do something during that time in the train, in the bus, or in the car. Versus to listening to music or to news, you can listen to something mindful, or some, for example, music with different hertzes, which actually also helps the mind to relax and to be more mindful. So we definitely can find the ways. The question is more how much you want it. And once you see those benefits, I hope you want it as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of my last questions is, I know that you and Daniel and our community team, you work with engineers and developers almost every day. Have you noticed anything different, or how does mindfulness look different when it comes to engineers and developers? Like, do those companies or people who work for those companies need to adjust their mindfulness practices in a different way based on the nature of their work, or do you think it's like more universal and doesn't matter?
Well, that's the beauty of mindfulness. Actually, is still universal in the sense that we still have the same needs for physical, movement. We still, of course, some of us needs more or less, depending, how we are built, or in general, how we are taking this whole aspect of it. But at the same time, we all need physical activity. We all need our mental support, where we do need to relax our brain. We do need also like training of our mental state ourselves. If we want to be healthy, this is literally just training. And we do still need those emotional support to understand our emotions and to really learn how not to trigger, our fears, because it's not that we can get rid of them, but we can learn how to minimize and to see our triggers. So in that perspective, it's all universal, which is really an easy answer because we can all use those methods. But at the same time, then we talk about engineers or developers. Those are people who are using lots of their minds because they're working with lots of numbers, with computers. So that means that their mental compartment is really active, which exactly might need that they will need to focus more on relaxing mental and integrated more the physical and emotional one in order to balance it. And of course, it depends on the job, on the routine itself, but these needs are certainly the same for all of us.
Okay, excellent. Very true. Thank you so much. I don't have any other questions for you today. That was very thorough, and I really appreciate all the time and dedication you put into that presentation. It was excellent. And for everyone watching, I'll be uploading this to the UpStack YouTube channel and posting these clips on social media. So thank you again, Diana, so much for your presentation today. Super helpful. And now I'm more inspired to hop on my treadmill desk now, because I was like, I definitely should incorporate what you're preaching. So
thank you, Nicole. Thank you. I'm buying a treadmill soon too.
It'll make it a team thing. I think it'll be very
Definitely.
fun. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.